All right. So, like when you think about American cars, those classic brands, right?
Mm.
Like Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, they're like the big names, right?
Yeah.
But like, did you ever think, like, imagine Chrysler actually going bankrupt?
Yeah, Chrysler, huh?
Yeah. So today we're going to like do this deep dive into all the things that went wrong there, how they fell apart.
Okay.
We've got this excerpt here, and we're just going to kind of go through it and see like what happened.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. I mean, Chrysler was like you said, a big name, big player.
Hmm.
So yeah, let's dig into like what went wrong.
Yeah. So the source here, it talks about like declining sales, but it doesn't really get into like the specifics. So like, what were they doing wrong? Were they just like missing what people wanted, consumer trends and things?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just like one single thing. It was a kind of a perfect storm of different factors.
Okay.
For example, they really struggled to keep up with fuel efficiency. Like the Japanese automakers, Honda, Toyota, they were coming in, especially in the 70s and 80s, with these smaller, more fuel-efficient cars.
Right, right.
And people were really starting to pay attention to, gas prices and being more environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
But Chrysler, they were still kind of stuck on these big gas-guzzling vehicles.
Mhm.
So that was a big misstep.
Yeah, it sounds like they weren't really adapting.
Right.
But then, I mean, they did this big merger with Daimler-Benz in 1998.
Yeah.
And at the time, it seemed like a power move. Like, whoa, these two giants are coming together.
Exactly.
What happened with that?
Yeah, so it was billed as this merger of equals, right? They were going to create this global like automotive superpower.
Right.
But it turned out to be this huge clash of cultures.
Really?
Daimler-Benz, they were all about luxury, very like precise engineering.
Yeah.
And Chrysler, they were more about mass market appeal.
Right. Okay.
So the two just didn't really mesh very well.
So the merger actually made things worse.
Yeah, that's what happened, unfortunately.
Wow.
Their management styles were very different. Daimler-Benz was much more top-down, very hierarchical.
Mm-hmm.
And Chrysler was more decentralized. They were more entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So you had all this conflict and a lot of inefficiencies. And they had problems integrating like their production, their supply chains.
Yeah.
It just created a ton of friction internally.
Well,
And that really ended up hurting the company's performance.
they're not the silver bullet they were hoping for with that merger.
No, not at all.
And then just a few years later, they get sold to Cerberus Capital Management, right?
Right.
In 2007. Was this the beginning of the end?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly put them in a very, very precarious position.
Okay.
Cerberus was a private equity firm,
Right.
and, they saddled Chrysler with a ton of debt, and this left them very vulnerable, especially, with the 2008 financial crisis. That was just around the corner.
Yeah, looming, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So was the financial crisis like the knockout punch?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the crisis just hammered the entire auto industry.
Yes.
Consumer spending just went like way down,
Mm-hmm.
and credit markets froze up.
Yeah.
Chrysler was already weakened, from the debt, all these internal problems.
Right.
They just couldn't survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ultimately forced them into bankruptcy in 2009.
And then we see the government stepping in, right, with the bailout, and then Fiat acquires them.
Right.
That's pretty dramatic. I mean, does that happen a lot in the auto industry? Government bailouts?
It's not unprecedented, but it's definitely a big deal when it happens.
Yeah.
In this case, the U.S. government, they basically saw Chrysler as too big to fail.
Mm-hmm.
They were worried about the economic fallout if the company went under.
Right. So yeah, the bailout and then the acquisition by Fiat, that was really the end of Chrysler as we knew it. It was the end of them being like an independent American automaker.
Wow. So when we look back at this whole thing, it just seems like it was this combination of bad decisions, right? Like strategic missteps.
Yeah.
They weren't keeping up with the market, what people wanted.
Yep.
And then the financial crisis it was like the final blow.
Right.
That makes you wonder, could they have, pulled through if they'd done things differently? Or was this kind of collapse? Was that just inevitable in an industry like the car industry, that's always changing so fast?
It's hard to say for sure, right? I mean, there are things they could have done differently,
Mm-hmm.
like their product strategy, how they reacted to, rising fuel costs, things like that.
Right, right.
Those were internal factors they had some control over.
Yeah.
But then you've got the external factors, like that financial crisis, that's much harder to predict.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to say what would have happened. But I think Chrysler's story really shows just how complex the car industry is,
Mm.
and all the challenges that come with trying to survive in a global market that changes so quickly.
Yeah.
And we've only just touched on a few of the main points here.
Right, right.
There's so much more to learn about Chrysler and just the whole story of the American auto industry, how it's changed over time.
Absolutely.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is.